Because of the following special broadcast, The Lucy Show and The Andy Griffith Show will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. It's a new week. John Suntress here. I'm always happy to welcome my buddy Dean Haspiel back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, Dean.
Good to see you too, John. And it's funny, I was just like in the opening sequence there, you had the Lucy Show and the Andy Griffith Show will not be airing tonight. Oh my God, I have been watching MeTV more than ever. Do you know what MeTV is?
Of course I do. Sure.
That's the best television. Like, I love like, you know, True Detective, Night Country. I don't know if you watched it. Did you see that?
I didn't watch the Jodie Foster year, but go ahead.
It's so good. I know it polarized people. Some people either hate it or they love it. I don't think there's any in between, right? So okay. I loved it, but like, and so that's new TV, right? But there's something about like the comfort of like the Alfred Hitchcock hour. What's up, Bob?
Bob Harrison joining us on the chat, everybody. Fine podcast.
Thank you. There's something to God. What else is there?
Twilight Zone, Green Acres. Green Acres. I mean, listen. A lot of sitcoms don't hold up, and Petticoat Junction, Beverly Hillbillies. Not a big fan anymore. I mean, we grew up on that stuff when we were sick. Green Acres is the most subversive show. You got the brother and the sister, Ralph and Alf. And Alf is or Ralph rather is the woman.
Right.
It seems to have some qualities that might be asexual at best. But they enter a scene. They always walk in through the closet, and I think there was a metaphor there.
Or just something blatant, just blatantly saying, But it's funny because they were playing. Oh, there's Russ. Hey, what's up, Russ? How you doing? The Monkeys Get Smart, of course. I've watched back-to-back episodes of Mama's Family. Do you remember Mama's Family? Okay,
go on.
But wait, every other sentence is a sexual innuendo. It was so perverse. Unbelievable. I was just like, what is going on here? And I rejected that show as a kid. That show wasn't made for me. I don't know who it was made for, except maybe Carol Burnett fans, right?
And it's such a shame because the family that was based on was like this Tennessee William half drama, half comedy, and was so much smarter than. Yeah. And listen, hey, Vicki Lawrence, I'm sure you made a lot of money from that. Yeah. God bless you, woman. That's totally fine. Danny Fingeroff joining us as well.
What's up, Danny?
Everybody's coming out. I love it. Awesome. But another show like that is Spin City, the Michael J. Fox show.
Oh, I remember Spin City.
And that's on Amazon. And I didn't remember the amount of sexual innuendos. And also Michael Boatman played a gay guy on the show. So there's a lot of gay jokes on there and stuff. And yeah, man, I mean, like, no way would that fly today. So yeah, Mama's Family too.
B. Arthur in, Maude would not fly. It almost didn't fly in 1972, And that's probably one of my favorite TV shows next to like the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Sure.
But right after I saw those 2 episodes of Mama's Family, I know they run these over and over and over again. But I had to look it up, and for $40, I bought all 4 seasons on DVD.
Of Mama's Family?
Tomorrow. That's right. Listen, I'm an outlier, dude. I'm an outlier, okay? I cannot help myself, all right? So.
Okay. Well, Ken Berry's estate thanks you. I hope he makes I hope he makes a point on that. And I love Ken Berry. And it's like, oh man, what are you doing, Mama's Family? Oof.
Listen, like it's kind of like excavating gold, like it's weird little treasures because they don't make television like that anymore, and they're probably there's a good reason why, right? But at the same time, that is why. That is why I'm fascinated by it. You know, and again, there's a sense of comfort. Like seeing Batman go right into Star Trek, you can't get any better than that.
Come on, absolutely. Well, and Night Stalker every Saturday night.
Oh my God, Night Stalker! Come on,
exactly. No. You know, I'm only a couple of years older than you. I get it. I absolutely get it.
I was never a big was it Canon? And what other one? Not Matlock, but is there one with an M? Another
Barnaby Jones, of course.
Barnaby Jones, right?
Mannix.
Right. But last night
I loved Mannix. I was a big
Mannix, that's what I'm thinking of. Right. Mannix is really cool. But also like, you know, Voyage under the whatever the
Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, certainly.
Right. Irwin Allen film
Time
show.
Tunnel.
And yeah, all those. Time Tunnel, come on.
You know, a year or so ago, when it's funny, we played the Alex Ross commercial. When Alex did that Fantastic Four Full Circle graphic novel 2 years ago, his idea for Reed was Gary Conway from Land of the Giants, and I had him on the show. And it was
Gary Conway on the show.
I had Gary on. It's in the library, buddy. You can find it.
Wow.
Not only was he great on Land of the Giants, but he also earlier I Was a Teenage Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
And the subsequent kind of sequel, How to Make a Monster. And you know, he's covered in this horrible makeup. And he had the best stories. He was a student at UCLA, and he didn't want anyone to know that he made this schlocky movie. He wanted to be a serious actor. And he goes, I'm driving to campus every day, passing a marquee with I Was a Teenage Frankenstein, right?
But in a weird way, there's a parallel to comics in that, like, the origin of the creation of comics by old white male Jews was that they were kind of couldn't get a real job doing kind of illustrations. They had to create carve their own lane by creating comic books for kids or whatever.
Absolutely.
And then it became serious many years later. And now we're trying to make it for kids again and whatever. It's all over the place, right? But in a weird way, there's a parallel to like that sense of it being embarrassed. Like I think cartoonists never said, I'm a cartoonist or I make comic books. They said other things, you know? And or Julie Newmar, didn't she do a show where she was like the perfect woman, a robot or something like that?
My Living Doll with Bob Cummins.
There you go.
And she's a robot. Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure it's awful. And she's like pretty in it, you know, and that's it, right? And you know that story, right? You know that she's my first kiss.
Wow, good boy. Good place to start.
Well,
how did that happen? Talk to me.
I was two years old, maybe, in my mother's arms. And Shelley Winters, my godmother, who we know is the reason why I'm on planet Earth, because she introduced my parents. I guess we went to some play, and Julie Newmar was in it. And like I guess Shelley was introducing my mom and dad or whatever to her, and then she gave me a little peck on the cheek. That was my first like non-familial kiss. Pretty good, and this is why I am who I am today because of that.
I'm not trying to show you up, but it reminds me, and especially coming off the Oscars last night, I was 17 and in LA, and me and my stepmother were at Tantana's, and Rita Moreno was there. And we met Ms. Moreno, and she was very kind to me. And she goes, "How old are you, kid?" And I'm like, 17. She's like, "You're old enough." She grabs my head and kisses me.
That's
so I've been kissed by an EGOT winner.
And she's 92. She was just on the Oscars and getting a little frisky with her version of America, right? Like, my God.
Oh, no, she's nuts in the best way. Yeah. This is like when she used to guest star on the Rockford Files, that era.
Oh, my God. What a great show. And James Garner. Oh, my God. And you know, going back to Batman, you know, the 60s Batman show, I'll do a little trivia question, but you probably already know this. They never had Two-Face on.
Right.
But you know who was cast to play Two-Face?
Yeah, I've heard the stories. Go ahead and you can give the answer. It's all right. I know I
think it was Clint Eastwood.
It was supposedly going to be Clint Eastwood.
It would have been amazing.
Great casting, absolutely.
Oh my God!
I do love that Shatner and Adam West and Burt Ward did that second cartoon, Batman versus Two-Face. You know, they did the Return of the Cape Crusaders, and Julie's in that one.
Well, there's also there was the Harlan Ellison, I think, wrote the Two-Face story that didn't get made. That then Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, I think, drew, and I forget who adapted the script.
Maybe Bob will remember who wrote it. But yeah, I do
Len
remember
Wein or something, but I don't think it was Len Wein. And he might have passed away by then. I can't remember, but I have it somewhere, and I remember reading it was fine, But still, like watching these shows, they just grow better and stronger every time I watch them, and it's insane. The Honeymooners, I was actually maybe you know the answer to this. Those are plays. Did they know every line? How much of it was winging it? How much of it was improvised?
Oh no, they absolutely did serious rehearsals. Although Gleason had a photographic memory, so his stand-in would do the rehearsals with Art Carney and Joyce Randolph and now I'm blanking. Shame on me. Alice. Who was Alice again? Right. Audrey Meadows. Audrey Meadows. Dude, as you know, as a New Yorker, is it Elaine's where all the Hirschfield sketches are, or is it it's the big Broadway after a play restaurant, and they have
right. Is it Elaine's or was it called? Is it with a P? Why do I feel like it's with a P? And you mean with all the artwork, right?
Yes.
Oh God. And my dad would definitely know this, and probably my mom and anybody listening. I want to say it's Elaine's, but that doesn't sound right. I feel like
maybe it's Sardi's. Maybe it's Sardi's.
Sardi's. I think it's Sardi's.
Okay. So Franco took me to Sardi's because when I'm in New York, I want to soak it all in. I love New York. I am not an angry Chicagoan. I love New York. I think it's terrific. So yeah, all right. Thank you, Danny. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it is. It is Sardi's. Yeah.
And there was a rumor today that the Oscars, snub Scorsese all the time and De Niro because they're New Yorkers, and the Oscars doesn't like New York movies. Have you heard this before?
I've never heard that, and certainly they've both won their share of hardware and certainly nominated a lot.
Right.
To finish the Sardi's thing, there's a corner of Sardi's where they have the original Hirschfeld, because there are new caricaturists that do more modern sketches and stuff. Right, but they have a corner where it is the 4 Honeymooners stars, and Hirschfeld did those in the 50s.
That's awesome.
And that was amazing to see. Oh my God, yes, yeah, that was incredible. Yes, Danny is correct. The Palm has a lot of cartoonist illustrations on the wall. Absolutely, it does. Yes.
Hirschfeld used to live. Actually, Danny, I think you had an office on the same block, I believe, as where Hirschfeld lived on 99th Street and Broadway. I think that's where he lived, and I think Danny had an office like right there for a long time. And obviously the Ninas. We already know about the Ninas, that he would somehow hide his daughter's name in the hair or the neck or whatever.
Yep. That's a great documentary about Hirschfeld.
Oh, I need to see that. I've heard about that.
Sitting in the barber chair sketching. Amazing.
Wow.
And listen, everybody, and I'll at least flash this because eventually we are going to get to the fact that Dean's got a new Kickstarter for his outstanding book, outstanding character, and it's a new book, The Red Hook. Right. Always glad to talk about that. But while we're on the subjects, and we're mentioning some older illustrators, cartoonists, and the like, we lost Ramona Fraden last month. How many times did you come across her in your career?
Oh, like a bunch of times, and like I practically sat in her lap. Like I loved her. What a beautiful woman, a beautiful artist, a beautiful soul. Although you could tell that she was tough as nails. Like you know what I'm saying? Like, but very respectful, and usually at Baltimore Comic-Con, the family show that a lot of us love so much because it is our Thanksgiving show in a way, and the fact that she only had 6 weeks retirement and then was out, so.
Yeah.
And what an incredible life, incredible legacy. And I've cited her as one of my, the older you get, you realize who your influences are. Like, oh wait, I was always looking at her stuff, and Metamorpho alone, she was not Modesty Blaze. Was it Modesty?
No, Brenda Starr. Brenda Starr.
I was first familiar with her stuff in that, and I remember actually the first cartoonist I ever met. I was working at a candy store at age, I think 16 at 79th Street and Broadway, and there was a guy who walked in, this little kind of Asian-looking dude, and he had a portfolio in his hand. I'm thinking, dude, he must have. Well, he definitely has artwork in there, but I wonder if he has comics. So I asked him what's in there, and he pulls out like Prince Valiant and Dondi pages, like Prince Valiant and Dondi. Okay, I'm like, what's your name? And his name is Ben Oda, and Ben Oda lettered so many comics, including, and apparently years later, I found out that there was a studio right around the corner from where I lived, where Irwin Hasten, Ben Oda, and a bunch of guys rented a hotel room. And in fact, it's in the Irwin Hasten graphic graphic novel he did about this. And I think one night, Irwin Hasten had a lady over, right, late at night. But Ben Oda comes into the door to do some late night lettering. So he's hiding with this woman like in another room while Ben Oda's lettering, waiting for him to get out of there. Something like that. But Ben Oda was my first cartoonist I ever met. And then that's the font I use in all my self-published comics, like the Red Hook, the Cop, and everything. It's a Ben Oda font to pay homage. Also, I really like his font. So there you go.
I don't see. Well, we get not
here.
really.
This is an unlettered page, except for the title of the newspaper headline. But yeah, I didn't want to give away too much. And that's the other thing. This is part of our discussion today. Is Loverboy? That's right. Part of our discussion today is a little bit about AI and how I'm trying. Usually, you try to show as much as you can of a project to create FOMO and entice and tease, and it's really been hard for me to figure out how to not show. Because I don't want to feed the machine. You know, a lot of people are angry at AI. Don't be mad at AI. Be mad at other people who use AI. You know, it's not. And again, I'm not against using AI to a certain extent.
As a tool, yeah.
As a tool. But when it's just robbing you, and as I realized recently, it's robbing my old work while taking away new work from me.
Agreed.
What the hell? And this has happened to me. So
really?
I know. Yeah, no. I don't even want to get into it right now, but it's pretty nuts. And I'm not even famous. I'm not like a rock star in comics or nothing. But it'll take what it wants, you know, and amalgamate and create its own little collage of whatever. And then, you know, and sometimes it's really cool. Often the creepy stuff is really cool looking. The creepy looking stuff. It's when it's shiny and like perfect. I just feel like, all right, like if that's what you like and that's what you want, that's not my thing.
Well, there's no soul to it. All right, a couple things. And God, I'm so glad everybody's coming out to watch. It always means a lot. Jeff Parker is watching. He wants names.
What's up?
And Ed points out you're going to be at Ithacon. That's great, man. No, that's terrific. That's a great convention.
Yeah, I cannot wait to go to that. And I've been wanting to go to Ithaca. I don't even know if I've ever been to Ithaca. And it's like a college town, I believe, right? So it's probably got a really cool the Rockstar kind of. I guess if you're trying to sell tickets to Ithacon, you got to put it out there like that. That's really kind of you, Ed.
Absolutely.
No, but yeah, no, I'm going to that. I'm actually doing a few cons coming up soon. I'm doing Motor City Comic Con I've never done before. I'm a guest there in May, and also St. Mark's Comics, which is now in Industry City in Brooklyn. The legendary St. Mark's Comics. This will be their third year, maybe fourth, I think third year of running a show called BIX, which stands for Brooklyn Independent Comic Show, which I'm also a guest at, thankfully. So yeah, I'm gonna be taking these Kickstarter comics I've been producing lately, and that's all that I bring. I don't bring back my old stuff necessarily, even though I should, because they could probably sell too. But I'm trying to, as Ed pointed out, I'm trying to lean into Dean more so than ever with my crowdfunded work right now. You know,
I hear you, Ed. Do me a favor, post the dates for Ithacon. I don't have them at my fingertips to just rattle them off, but we're happy to promote the show, and it's a great show, and I'm always happy to have people on Word Balloon that I know are going to be at Ithacon. So that's great, and also it's what I love about the show is, and I think it's really smart of Ed to present it this way. They have a program of studies at Ithaca College for event planning,
right?
And the kids run the show, right? And so they have practical experience once they leave school. That I did the publicity for Ithacon.
That's right.
So if I want an event planner publicity job, you know, I've already got a credit.
Got some skills.
Outstanding.
And also, I think I'm probably going to be doing a panel. I think Ed's trying to set up something with Walt and Weezy Simonson, who will also be there. We'll see how it works out. I told Ed I'll do as many panels as you want me because that's my favorite thing. I hate sitting behind a table, just kind of waiting for someone to come up to me. And I'm an okay salesman for myself. I'm a better salesman for other people. And I think that's true for most people. You get a little shy. You're like, I hope you like, you pick up what I'm laying down kind of thing, which has also been like a training ground on, with crowdfunding, because that's all you're doing is asking. And you're reminding people, oh, I don't know if you saw this or not. You might dig it, So, and it's been a really it's more of an exponential experience because it's 24/7 versus like going away for a weekend and having to put that hat on, So it's really interesting. Have you ever crowdfunded?
No, I have. I don't want to go into details, but expect something this year. I'll leave it at that. Because also, I really want to.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Talking about, and I have some thoughts, but I think you're keeping that to your Patreon people right now, right?
Yes, I did, and that's the thing. Yes, so if you're a patron, you know what we're talking about.
I do.
God bless you for being a patron, Dino.
Oh no, but I mean, it's the least I can do, and I don't pony up too many bucks because, like, I'll show you something.
Sure. This is great stuff.
This is the freelancer's life, right? It's not even. I've never even seen this before. It's not Skippy. It's Hampton Farms. It's a real cheap peanut butter that I eat for dinner nowadays. But it is packed with protein. So
I literally went to the grocery store this afternoon and I bought generic mayonnaise for the same reason. and it's literally like $3 cheaper than the name brands. And again, hey man, we gotta go through this economy the best we can, and I get it. I totally get it.
For us to do what we want to do, there's certain sacrifices,
100%, absolutely, man.
A lot of sacrifices.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And I would say nobody put a gun to my head. I understand that, and I do it because I have to. Howard Chaykin calls it a calling, right? I call it a calling and a curse.
Oh yeah, you can't do anything else. You're compelled to do it. It's just
I have no skill set. I can't do anything else besides this at this age, come on. I'm unemployable otherwise, So
I know. Thank God AI is not replacing greeters at Walmart, or we'd be totally boxed out of potential senior citizen jobs as we're towards 60. I hear you.
And also, like, you have to have a purpose. I mean, I do think as people I know in my life start to get to a certain age, that's the dilemma. Is like, what are you able to do, and what is your purpose at that point? And it's a struggle, man. And I get it. I have an existential crisis about it all the time. Like, what was I meant to? And it's not even a megalomaniacal or egotistical thing. It's just you want to be able to spend a day well if you can. And I work with a reward system. I'll work all day, and I'll check my phone, and I'll do this and that, and have conversations like this. But if I can get something done, then I allow myself to watch a TV show or a movie or read a comic book, because it's a reward system, and otherwise I feel awful when a day goes by and I haven't, cracked more of that thing I'm doing, So anybody else hopping on here?
Yeah. Pat Searcher joining us. He drives me nuts. He won't. We talk all the time online, and I'm like, Pat, come on the show. But he just wanted to tell everybody how much he loves Dean's work on the great Archie character, the Fox. Indeed.
Thank you so much.
And there's a courtship, I would say, from a design standpoint, Dean.
Oh my God, the Red Hook. Okay, so that's what got me the Fox job. Is I wrote and drew a 6-page Red Hook story. I forget where I put it. It might have been online or whatever through Trip City or something back in the day. I don't know, in 2011 or whatever. Sure. And then Paul Kaminsky, who's now the editor at DC, basically blowing up DC with Mark Waid and Dan Mora, World's Finest, and Shazam, and it's amazing what they're all doing together. But Paul was my editor, but I think I sent him to my buddy Vito Del Sante. You know Vito? I think
I do. Yes, I do.
So he had written like a Black Hood backup or something, and then he told me that. I was like, well, dude, I've always loved the Fox, especially what Alex Toth did with it. I'd love to pitch. And I said, in fact, I have this character who it was 2012. my first time I went to Yaddo, the writers artist colony in Saratoga Springs, right? I knew I was going in. I knew I was going in to be a writer. Like, in other words, I was going in to not draw, take a month off from drawing, but I was going to write like a play or some prose or whatever. But I knew the first night I was there, I needed to kind of like shrug off my cartoonist, lapel, as it were. And so I decided to create a character. And the idea was, what would happen if Jack Kirby and Alex Toth got together and created a character? And what was born was this idea called the Red Hook. Okay. But because I liked the Fox, and that was the contribution that, the Alex Toth side would have possibly, and I was like, and kind of like a noir crime character, that's where the ears came on. And, basically it's a red version of the Fox in some ways, right? Visually. So there's a comparison right there. So even when I wasn't doing the Fox in the last decade, I've been drawing a version of him, or vice versa, the Red Hook through the Fox, whatever. It all blurs. And in fact, that will lead us to this Kickstarter, where basically I'm blurring the boundaries between fact and fiction by doing this, what do I call it? A meta mem noir. Okay. It's a speculative memoir. And one of the ideas I had going into this, here we are. Oh, I'm doing all right. Look at that. I've already made my goal, and I'm hoping to double that by the end of the campaign. But the idea was to revisit this character that I did for about 5 or 6 years at Webtoon, 4.5 seasons.
Yes.
Over 700 pages. Okay. And even got published in Dark Horse Presents before that folded, which was one of my dreams, was to be in the Dark Horse Presents anthology comic. But what I wanted to do was to kind of bring back this Red Hook character, but I was like, well, what kind of story do I want to tell now with this character? And what is the commentary I want to say? Because if the Red Hook originally was my love letter to superhero comics, right? And I've kind of done that, even though I can tell more stories. But what is the new way I can veer? And because we live in an age of authenticity, right? And we're living in a time where there's more memoir than ever before, I think, in comics. When I was younger, it was Harvey Pekar and a handful of other people, right? And then, oh God, when Alison Bechdel came in and did Fun Home and kind of blew it back up again, and now everyone and their mom. And Whitney Matheson, my studio mate, is doing daily diary comics, and they're awesome, right? But I kind of rejected it after doing The Quitter with Pekar, Jonathan Ames, The Alcoholic, which is semi-autobiographical, Cuba My Revolution with Inverno Lopez. And then I was like, I'm done with your real life stories. I'm sick and tired of plausibility here. Like, I got to get back to like drawing 25th century dolphins fucking in outer space or something, like something to have fun again. Because after a while, you got to draw. There's a lot of talking on cell phones. There's a lot of walking. There's not a lot of action and fighting and, a little bit of antagonism. And I was just like, let me just get back to doing kind of superhero stuff, and romance comics. And so anyway, I did all that again. And then I was like, well, let me figure out a way to merge those, between Jack Kirby, Harvey Pekar, which, Warren Ellis just said I was basically, I was like the protege of those two put together. And I thought that's a really good way of putting it,
Sure.
And I was thinking, well, how would I insert myself into this world? Do I just create a character, an avatar, and then just have myself walk into myself in a situation I'd never experienced and wonder how I would act, honestly, according to my own, understanding of myself, right? Okay. So I started to do that. I put myself in there. And then I was like, but wait a second. I have a real story that really happened to me that I want to tell inside the fantasy. So it truly blurs. It goes from, oh, here's Dean showing up a version of, right, to Dean telling a real story about himself, as well as interacting with these characters, perpetuating this new Brooklyn idea that I've created. And it all basically takes place at a version of Sonny's Bar on the waterfront at the end of Red Hook, And there's a love story in there. There are ghosts in this story. There's some romance. There's some grief and heartbreak, and I'm able to pack a lot into 24 pages because, like you, John, we both grew up reading a comic book that told a whole story in one issue. If you remember those days,
Or-
you know.
It, no, it happens occasionally now, but less than the frequency of our.
Well, now there are 5 or 6 issues, and I get it because
Right.
after writing 80 years of Batman, maybe you slow it down a little bit, like
Well, and again, it's a trade. God, I was just listening to Mark Evanier and Kurt Busiek talk, and it was during the pandemic, and they talked about how uh, Marvel in the '90s created a 99-cent book, and they figured this is going to be great on the newsstand. And all of a sudden, the newsstand people are like, "We don't want a 99-cent product. There's not much profit in that." And so, obviously, when you do the trade, and it's
Right.
the $25 or $30 trade, well, you're
Right.
going to make more money than even the nowadays the $5 comic book.
Well, it's funny because you're right. The $5 comic book, which is what it's become. So that's your standard 24-page comic, right? And I've had to think about this as a Kickstarter guy now.
Sure.
Which is a whole other ecosystem, right? I'm not charging $5 for my comic. I'm charging $10 for a digital version of my comic, and 15 or more, depending on what the deal is, for 24 or more pages. And then sometimes that might come with another digital comic that's worth 24 pages. So you're getting 48 pages of value, whatever, right? I'm trying to think about it, but I can still understand the grumblings of certain fans who are the Wednesday Warrior kind of, comic shop goer, thinking, dude, you can't charge 3 times what I'm paying over here, but I'm not in that system, dude. Like, I hate to say it, and it sounds corny, but I am creating like artisanal comics. I am creating a limited edition collector's item, and I don't want it to be slabbed and never read. I want you to read it and beat it up and share it with friends. Absolutely. But at the same time, I need to personally. I am the publisher, the promoter, the creator. I'm everybody, and like I need to not only pay the services that won't give me a break because I'm not working in bulk like Marvel and DC. I don't have relationships with distribution and retailers, although I could. And there are 2 things missing in this plan. I'll get to that in a second. But the idea is like to be okay that I'm going to charge a little bit more, and frankly, a few slices of pizza and a coffee. Sorry if that pisses you off. That's what it costs. But you're also going to get something that you can't find anywhere, that right now is only going to your mailbox or if you see me at a convention, right? But what I am missing, 2 great things. Reviews, because I don't see anybody reviewing Kickstarter comics, barely ever. Reviews can come from fans, but an actual site that does reviews, I don't see a lot of that. And worse, and this is the part I need to figure out, is the retailer, the impulse buy. I'm not getting any impulse buys with somebody walking by and like, what came out this week, And, I need to find my way of being like a Love and Rockets comic, where it comes out through, but then I'm literally cutting down a $15 comic where maybe I can make like $10, after shipping and printing and all that, other stuff, versus getting a retailer, then maybe I'm making $3 or $4. And is it worth it? I don't know. But I was talking to Nick Purpura at JHU Comics today. And he was giving me some interesting insight. He was like, no, do what you're doing, Dean, right? But, and especially if it's just a comic book. When it becomes a book with, 200 pages or whatever, that's a whole other ballpark. And that maybe you should try to get into bookstores or work with another like Zoop or somebody that will also do the legwork. That's another conversation. That's something I need to think about. But he was like, yeah, do your thing. But maybe what you do is maybe you offer a retailer version with a different cover, added value. Yes, maybe. And I need to figure that out. But I also have to build my audience, So that's what I'm hoping to do with my 3rd Kickstarter, is to continue to grow my hardcore fan base, which I'm so appreciative of because that's the only way I can survive right now, with the occasional gig here and there, But that's my meat and potatoes right now,
I do. And you mentioned that obviously you did do Red Hook for Webtoons for a while. What is the status of that content? Are you able to roll it in? Okay, and you could roll it into a graphic novel or a Red Hook omnibus if you want to. Actually.
So that's the plan. Like originally, I published the first 2 volumes with Image Comics, and they never really made it into the black, as it were, financially for them.
Sure. Yeah.
Because of 2 reasons, I think. One is, and maybe it's because it sucks and it's terrible work, and I'm an awful cartoonist. It could be that, right? But it came out once a year. And yeah, there was enough material to feel substantial, like, oh, that was a good story, good read. Where's the next one? And with manga having like 50 volumes of this and that, I don't have that library, right? I think one of the things that helped Jeff Smith's Bone, was he had 10 books. And after you read the first one, there were 9 more. By the time people were really glomming on, that's where he arrived at. And that's great. And that's what I don't have, right? But after the second volume, and also, by the way, you could read my comic for free online on your phone. You could read my comic on your phone for free. My comic is in your pocket right now. So, and I started to think about that. I was like, well, wait, why would you buy my comic if you can read it for free? And I know that there are people who don't read webcomics, and there are people who are just waiting for print, And but at the same time, I am competing with Marvel and DC in the superhero realm, even though when you read my comic, and it's clearly a superhero comic, it's clearly also very alternative, independent.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope to have an omnibus at some point. Yes.
Okay. And obviously, again, the current Kickstarter is a different story than what you did on Webtoons. It's a new story.
All brand new on page 10. Here, I'll show you.
Let
me show you.
I'm gonna zoom in.
Here's a little sneak peek.
Outstanding.
The bar, and this will be scanned in and then gray tone and lettered and everything else, So I'm trying to think of another little thing to show you while we're here.
We got a big audience watching, Dean, so I'm glad you're doing this.
Here's a cool little page.
Outstanding. Look at that.
Like a nice little splash page. Again, more artwork will happen with some gray tones and lettering and so on and so forth. So.
Well, it's been fun watching the evolution of your ideas too, Dean, because I also know that part of the DNA beyond the Fox for Red Hook is Billy Dogma.
Oh my God. I mean, weirdly enough, when I was trying to think of more ideas of Red Hook when Red Hook was happening, I started borrowing kind of stuff that I was saving for Billy Dogma and inserting it. And that's why the Red Hook kind of got a little cosmic. It, went from like being a Brooklyn kind of reluctant hero to being like, holy mackerel, we're going to like save the earth, or we're going to save the sun from burning out by creating a cosmic love child. I mean, all this crazy shit, that happens. That it's more like a Billy Dogma weirdness, but it's always a small town. It's weird because I'm a native New Yorker, right? So Manhattan, Brooklyn, but I love the concept of a small town. So last night's Twilight Zone was something called, I'd never seen it, called 5 Characters Looking for an Escape.
Outstanding episode. Go on.
I've never seen that. And
wow.
I don't want to give away, but like basically starts with a guy who's a major in the army, right? Like in a blank space. Where is he? He doesn't know. He has amnesia and like he's freaking out. Suddenly a clown shows up, a ballerina, a guy who plays oh God, not the bugle, but like some kind of horn instrument.
Yeah, like
and
a pipe.
What are you going to say? A bagpipe guy?
A bagpipe guy. Oh yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, you're right. It was bagpipes. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I know the episode.
And then they don't know what's going on either, and it becomes this existential crisis. Are they in hell? And I don't want to give away where it goes because it's a great ending, and it is inspired by a famous story. And it was written by Rod Serling. It was like season 3 or whatever. And then the other thing is I was watching, I think it was another Twilight Zone, and I had no idea that Buster Keaton did a Twilight Zone, and it starts off as a silent film written by Richard Matheson.
Yes.
Okay. And it's too loud in 1890 in the silent film era. And then somebody builds this silly time machine hat that takes you to another place for a half hour. So he goes to 1960, Twilight Zone time.
Modern time. Yes, indeed.
And gets into this future where he's like turning on a window, and in the window, a guy's face shows up. And so it's a TV set, little things like that. And then I don't want to give away that one either. And then you hear his voice, of course, Buster Keaton, and he's doing all his funny stunts. I think he did this show 5 years before he passed away. So he's an older Buster Keaton. But I'm like, oh my God, this is theater. These are plays, you know,
Oh,
and in a
no,
way,
absolutely.
because of the plays I have in writing, and I've written a new one, and I'm working on another one. We'll see what happens. But like my comics are sometimes like plays, but with like hyperbolic moments of action, you know. But then they sit back down. And this new comic, which has some action in it and some violence in it, is basically a play in a bar or at a bar, you know. And I was thinking about like Quentin Tarantino. Most of those are plays, his
Right.
movies, with a little bit of action here and there.
Right.
But ultimately, there's a lot of people talking about stuff.
Oh yeah, the coffee shop scene in Pulp Fiction could have been a one-act play.
Oh, you mean Reservoir Dogs? Wait.
No, I mean.
Oh,
No,
you're right. You're right.
Pulp
You're
Fiction
right.
where the holdup happens and everything.
That's right. That totally could have play right there. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. I love, but I also love to use the virtues of the medium. In other words, when I write a play, I'm trying to write it for actors standing in a space, a small space.
Sure.
You know, a movie should probably have less words and more action and movement and sound and ambiance. You know, a comic book has to deal with that blank page and drawing static images next to each other that represent certain phases of time. You know.
Absolutely.
And how much of it is talking versus not talking. Or famously, Stan Lee added a lot of extra words to Spider-Man to slow down the action and tell jokes. You know, I don't know, man. I just love storytelling. I love story making.
I hear you, buddy. I'm going to show another image from the Kickstarter that has a kind of a classic comic book trope right there.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
No, I get it. I'm thrilled you're doing it, Dean, and I agree. I think these are kind of COVID Cop and Billy Dogma right there. You know, I do like that you've got that skill to kind of combine, you know, your introspective comics along with the superhero action that you know how to do.
Well, that's the most fun. I always say like, you know, I like to impart a meaningful message through entertainment. You know, like, and usually the message is like a sense of hope or love or can't we get along, or, you know, it's always about some kind of miscommunication or what you're not willing to say, or, you know, all kinds of stuff, you know, and also trying to like carve this autonomous path where I'm reacting to the world and probably revisiting certain themes over and over again, because that's what you discover in your work, you know. The things that concern you to make these human connections, you know, and that's all. I mean, you're making human connections by talking to people, you know, and that's another way of doing things, you know.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that more than I do.
Well, and when you do it well. You're certainly a podcaster of experience. You know, and yeah, this is the radio show and now television show that I always wanted to host, and thankfully with the digital platform, I'm able to do it myself.
Right.
Jen Ferguson, is your drawing approach different on this new project? For example, are you drawing them larger? Are you using a new technique? Or can we expect classic Dean with this one?
That's my girlfriend. That's Jen Ferguson, the great painter, artist. What's funny because I feel like I'm taking a little bit of a different approach, but I'm also having a tough time with drawing the way I used to draw. Or when I say used to, it's like, when I was doing the Red Hook, I was probably producing about 120 pages a year or something, right? And now I've slowed down. Like last year, I probably drew, did I even draw Superman last year? No, I drew COVID Cop, some Billy Dogma. I must have drawn like 45, 50 pages. And when you slow down, it's like riding a bike. You can always get back on and ride the bike, but you lose something unless you're always, you know, in practice. Like I have friends who play guitar, for instance. They practice every day to play that guitar so that they can just come naturally to them. And when they have to go perform in front of live people, you know, I'm not performing, drawing it in front of anybody, but I am trying to figure out new ways and new shorthands and new nuances just because I'm bored with my own drawing. And other people might look at it and go, that's cool. It's great. And I'm like, thank you. But it's not as much fun to draw. I wait till about 5 or 6 o'clock at night to start drawing. It takes me that long to finally get to drawing. And I'm writing and I'm doing, you know, like I'm engaging with people. I'm doing all this other stuff to avoid drawing. And when I finally get to drawing, it's almost like I've gotten a little exhausted. So if I'm tired, maybe I'm a little looser. And I'm trying to draw on crappy paper so that like it has this sense of what I call a deliberate accident, even though it's all, worked out. Like when I do my layouts, I think I've shown it to you. Like, I write a script. Okay.
Sure.
Whatever. And then like, these are thumbnail layouts. This is where the comics happen right here.
Certainly.
This is, once I do this, it's all done. Like,
yeah, it's mapped out.
This part right there. Now I got to go draw the damn thing. All right. And make it look good, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's
what Hitchcock used to say too, that he would have the whole movie thumbnailed out essentially with storyboards. And he's like, all right, now it's the boring part where I actually have to shoot the goddamn thing.
You have to shoot the damn thing, which is weird because I am trying, now that I know that, and we've discussed that, and I probably mentioned this before in the past, but I am trying to find the fun in, just, noodling with that little ink for a second and then going like that and seeing how those two work together, and only I see it. Nobody else sees it. Nobody's like, analyzing the artwork or anything. So I don't know. But at the end of the day, what I want to do is do a comic that looks more like my thumbnails. And when I say a comic, I probably mean like a graphic novel. It's probably based on one of my plays or something that would have been a play that could turn into that. Or really, I just have to design characters that guy has a big nose. That one has one eye. That one has a beard, and then you just quickly draw that so you know who the characters are. So you're not really looking at the artwork as much as you're looking at the words, which is what people are doing anyway, usually when they read a comic, right?
Yeah. No, it's a combination. I mean, you're right, though. Mignola basically said the same thing as he slowed down over the years. And he didn't quite describe it the same way that you did, but essentially it is that, like, no,
it's a shorthand art. It's a shorthand art. In fact, I pulled a Mike Mignola. Today I'm inking a page that I penciled, right? And, like, you can't really see it. There's like a bar, and, like, there's a whole, like, I'm going like this. It goes down to the character, all this stuff. But you see this panel this panel. Jesus,
yeah.
I can't. You see this panel right here?
Oh, okay. Yeah, the tape.
It's a tape, right? Yeah. So I have my character handing it to Red Hook a piece of tape because he's gonna fix this drawing on here, right? But I did not have that tape panel in my original layouts. And I thought, well, I kind of want to have a little moment where you actually see. And there's no dialogue, and it's just ambient, and it's very Mike Mignola, because if you read a Mike Mignola Hellboy page or something, sometimes there's like a skull, like hiding in a corner or something, or just some eerie-looking crow or whatever, just to give like an ambiance to the page, to show more information that you don't have to apply, like words to or anything, because image is text, right? So it's also telling part of the story while the story is happening. It's just a way to have another camera on at the same time, right?
So it's like it's the meta moment, right, where it's Dean the writer kind of handing Red Hook the tape.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's like those old Looney Tunes where Daffy was freaking out because the cartoonist
kept
him in the drawing and stuff.
That's right.
So yeah, no, I love it.
It's weird because that asks some kind of weird God question that I don't ask or answer. But I'm just doing this for the first time. I'm testing the waters to see how this works and hope that it's entertaining. And yeah, it's a little egotistical to say, hey, come read this comic that I debut in, officially. Although Harvey Pekar wrote, like in American Splendor, when Vertigo was publishing American Splendor, there were a bunch of stories where I'm in it and I was drawing the comic based on his point of view of what happened. And sometimes it was pretty accurate, and sometimes it's like, that's not exactly, and he's like, nope, that's his point, that's the truth right there, right? So that's the thing I'm exploring here is what is truth. So what I care about are the emotional truths. I don't care what I draw, and even what I write, what I want to convey is something that connects you, the reader, and maybe you think about, well, what would you be like in that situation? That's what I do when I watch movies. Half the time I'm like, what would I do? There's a situation, and sometimes the story will pause to let you think about that for a second. What would you do? How would you react? And there's often debates about that. Like, well, what I would have done, or a horror film. Get out of the house. Kind of a thing. I'm not going to stick around and hang out with this ghost or this monster. Like, I'm out of here, kind of thing. So it's the same idea, you know. But to answer Ben's question, I'm trying to do something a little bit different. I don't think it's that different, to be honest, at the end of the day. I'm just maybe getting better at what I do, I hope.
Yeah, but Dean, like a lot of independent people, independent creators, we come for your performance.
Oh,
so it's not. It's but truthfully, and that's the thing, man. And I know you're a humble guy, and I'm not one of the big guys. I think you are one of the more interesting independent creators that has been out there for a long time. And again, we like being on the journey with you.
So I really appreciate that. I really, you know what it is. It comes from, if anything, it comes from the fact that I was never ready for prime time, and that I was too mainstream for the independent world. I was too indie for the mainstream world. And so I've really had to figure out a way like to, keep my footprint out there in some way on a regular basis, even though I'm not really in comic stores anymore. And I was never a regular Wednesday guy. I never did a monthly book. I was never Kurt Swan or Jim Aparo. And I wouldn't even know how to do that,
Sure.
If you gave me 6 issues to do in a year to put my, like my Paul Pope, Frank Miller, Becky Cloonan stamp on something, absolutely. I would love to do that.
And you have, the thing, Nightmare on Yancey Street, isn't that what it was called?
Yeah. Night Falls on Yancey Street.
Night Falls on Yancey Street.
Kevin Dorkin, right. But you know what? I wasn't ready for prime time. I look at that work and like, well, this is the funny thing. I don't know how if you do this to yourself. Sometimes in the last 5 years to a decade, I will write something I know I cannot draw. And I'm like, fuck it. I'll just try to draw it. I'm not going to draw a lot of horses and cars racing. I'm not. I'm just never going to do it. In fact, I turned down a job recently that required some motorcycles. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Sorry. I know it will just kill me. And I won't even do a good job. I'm just honest. I know myself well enough. But I'll sometimes write something that like, well, I'll figure it out when I get there. And then you figure it out. And you do something that resembles and hopefully conveys the idea. And that's the shorthand of comics, my friend. Does it look like what's happening? Do you get what I'm going for? Fantastic. Keep turning those pages because comics are about turning pages.
Kirby, they would say that about Kirby's military comics, that, his uniforms and his vehicles weren't quite accurate. And it's like, who cares? It's Kirby's tank. It's Kirby's uniform. We don't care. Yeah, I'm with you, man. No, I'm absolutely with you. That's great. Well, you got 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks left of the Kickstarter campaign. And you're at your goal, but you want to hit the stretch goals, obviously.
Well, and it's funny because I haven't put a stretch goal out there yet. And I have some good, good tiers that you get some artwork for, or there's like a Zoom party or consultation.
Nice.
That kind of stuff, or a commission type thing. And they all, except for the first tier, which is digital only, they all come with what I'm trying to do here is sell my comic book. Okay. I want my comic book to land in your mailbox on your doorstep for you to enjoy and hopefully want some more, And again, trying to figure out how to get more orders and get some impulse buys and reviews. That's hopefully the future for all Kickstarter or crowdfunded comics, right? Is some are doing bundles. I get it. I haven't figured that out yet. But just to keep, Kickstarter is, if not the third biggest publisher in comics, it might be the biggest publisher of comics. There's a new campaign every day. And at the end of the day, we're just competing with your time and attention.
Sure.
And if something just sparks, you go, okay, that looks cool. Or what's that about? Let me read about a paragraph or two, and that's where you got to somehow hook them.
Yeah.
And again, I'm learning that trick too. I mean, I'm a fan as well. So I'm trying to appeal to me too with this work,
Are you friends with Jimmy and Amanda?
Oh, Jimmy gives me advice all the time.
I was going to say, man, because it really seems like
he's a guru.
Yeah, literally. That was the word I was going to use. Yeah. And also here in Chicago, my good friend Ryan Brown, God Hates Astronauts, has had tremendous Kickstarter success. And he's doing 8 Billion Genies with Charles Soule.
Right.
Danny has a good question. Let me read it for the audio audience. Would you ever give your thumbnails to other artists to complete so you could produce more Dean stories?
That's an interesting. The answer should be yes, but if I'm writing it, I want to draw it. Usually. Now, if you hired me to write, I don't know, a Spider-Man story that like you get like, I don't know, Ross Andrew. I don't know why I brought him.
I love Ross Andrew. Don't
Ross
kid
Andrew,
yourself.
if he were alive to draw, I'd be like, I will figure that out. I will figure out how to write for someone, right? But if it's a personal story, something that I feel like I need to do, then what I need to do is figure out how to turn my thumbnails into finished art right there and then. Like, in other words, just I can do 4 thumbnails a day, push comes to shove. And why couldn't those be 4 pages of a comic, in a way,
Well, D, have you played with a Wacom? Because it would seem that would be a place where you can start with thumbnails and turn it into panels.
My good buddy Larry O'Neill, Denny O'Neill's son, gifted me an iPad, and Jen, my girlfriend, gifted me the pen to draw with, right?
Stylus, yeah.
And I did something, and then I put it down because I realized I need time to play for real. Like, I can't just be like, and I'm not so fascinated by it that I'm like, I have to do this. And there is something to just pen and paper, pencil, or brush on, and I know you can copy and ape, but why? I can scan it in. Why would I want to copy? So I feel like I have to find something in that realm that would make me happy to do that. But to go back to like Danny's question, I mean, he knows I love to teach storytelling layout classes, So in fact, that's one of the things I'm offering recently is that ability to do that. And I might even be doing a little bit of teaching like that in some places, because to me, that's the crux of comics. If you can come in with a story idea and some character designs, I will absolutely help you figure out a really good way to visually convey your story, because that's I know that's the hardest part, because there's a lot of people who just lean on headshots talking and then a punch or whatever. And like, and yeah, okay, technically you've achieved a comic, but come on, man, so I don't know. I feel like there's a really cool way to exploit that blank space in unique and fun ways, because it when you see it. There are really great illustrators and draftsmen that really don't show a good story. Okay, then there are people who are incredible story. Can show story, but their art's a little flimsy or whatever. Sure. Who I love, who's a sweet spot. And I recently picked up, speaking of Jeff Parker, the Ninjak comic. Was it Marcos Martin? Right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I talked to Jeff when he was working with Marcos on.
Oh, I think I might have hopped in on it, whatever. But like, oh my God, like it's almost like if Jaime Hernandez was doing a superhero comic. Like there's this thin, clean line, but every page is like a masterpiece, and it's a fun story. And I don't know, man. To me, it was like a revelation to me,
Oh,
and
thank you. Yeah, it was Javier Pulido.
Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks for staying on too. But yeah, Javier Pulido. And Marcos Martin also is incredible. He's actually working with Ed Brubaker on Friday right now.
That's correct.
Unbelievable. Another one. They're in the same boat, right? But Javier Pulido, like, oh my God. And like, I don't know how hard it was to collaborate or not or whatever, but like what I saw was just a revelation to me, And I feel like if I could find a way to do something like that, where it's just enough of drawing and indication. And when I say that, I don't mean that like I'm being a cheap artist to somebody. I mean finding that sweet spot where that's just enough to convey the story and show story and turn those pages,
Yeah. No, Kelly Thompson, and I'm blanking on who her artist is on Birds of Prey right now. But it's the same thing where you can kind of feel that Hernandez kind of with the expressions on their faces, right. But a really good traditional comic book action as well. So no, I get it.
There's an artist also. I was talking about Dan Mora on Mark Waid's World's Finest and Shazam and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
There's another artist who, when I look at his stuff, I'm like, wow. Like there's no way I could ever. And I think he draws Nightwing.
Tom Taylor. I don't know.
Tom Taylor, the artist on Nightwing, is just so unbelievable. Like, and it might have been like a year ago. I think I don't know. I forget his name right now. I think he's a Spanish artist. Again, God damn, so good. And there's more than just economy. There's something else happening. There's some kind of magic. I don't know what it is. So check out that stuff if you haven't.
That's beautiful, man. That's outstanding. Before I forget, when you mentioned Oda, the letterer on Dondi and all that stuff, my sister and I grew up on Dondi, and my first New York show, I went to Mr. Hasten, and he's in his little safari suit and everything, with classic Erwin Hasten, and I'm like, Mr. Hasten, I got to tell you, he used to break our hearts every week with Dondi, and I said that poor little kid. We all worried about him. If you don't know Dondi, everybody, it was this kind of soap opera comic strip that
was he an immigrant?
He was an immigrant, and it was kind of that post World War II period of like the Marshall Plan, when all these Europeans were just kind of trying to find a new home after their poor country was destroyed, and Dondi was this little orphan immigrant kid, and it's like, oh, somebody adopt this poor kid. Good Lord.
It was a sad comic to read. Very different from Motley Crue. No, what was it called? The Motley Crue, or oh god, not like Hagar the Horrible, but it was like there was this other comic strip that I'm blanking.
Did Irwin draw it?
No. Okay. But Irwin was the co-creator of the Fox.
Yes, I do. Yes, I did. And Wildcat for DC.
Wildcat. That's right.
Well, it's great. I used to write for Boxing Illustrated, Bert Sugar's boxing magazine, and Irwin drew a whole page when Tyson was, really at like wit's end and everything was going wrong for him in his personal life, and he drew this great team up of Dondi giving Mike Tyson advice. When I have trouble, I go to my foster dad, and he always has really good advice for me. Yes, I got to do that, Dondi. Thank you very much. Have a good night. I think that's a good way to live.
Isn't he about to fight again?
Yes.
What's going on?
Well, it's an easy, the Paul brothers, Jake and Logan, they kind of drive me nuts. They're big YouTubers. They have a giant audience. Jake is a little more serious about his boxing than Logan is. I hope it's not when Logan fought Floyd Mayweather, because it was Mutt and Jeff. I mean, the height difference and the reach difference was just ridiculous. And you could kind of tell there was some sort of agreement where Mayweather wasn't going to punch him in the face. Now, I don't know if you can make that deal with Mike Tyson. And I do remember you might. I don't know if you watched it a couple of years ago when he and Roy Jones had their exhibition.
No.
And it was great because Roy was expecting a pity pat exhibition, and nobody told Mike. And Mike didn't hit him in the face, but he ripped him on some body shots, and Roy was hanging on for dear life.
Oh, my God.
And I have to admit some schadenfreude of, well, Roy, that's getting your payback for all those great fights that you avoided because you knew you might have trouble.
There you go.
And Mike looked great. Now, that was 3.5 years ago.
Right.
He'll be 58 when he's fighting Jake Paul.
Can't believe that.
But he's in great shape, and he knows how to work himself and everything. And I mean, it's going to be on Netflix for free, so it's not going to be a pay-per-view. I'm not sure how the money works because, again, I give Jake Paul and Logan Paul, they promote their own fights. So there you go. I thought, Jay, thank you. I thought he was talking about Bruno Redondo.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
I was going to say Esther, but that's the older Redondo. Yeah, Bruno Redondo.
No, Bruno Redondo is next level. I don't know how these artists work today, and create such beautiful work, not only in the illustration, the rendering, the color that goes with it. I don't know if he colors it or works with the colorist in a way, and the storytelling, and I don't know, man. It's just and Jorge Fornes is another guy.
God, yes. Yeah, good. King and I have talked about Jorge and the work he's done with Tom King. So, yeah. No, I agree.
And Jorge drew my buddy Larry O'Neal's tribute to his dad, Denny O'Neal, in the Green Arrow that was then Eisner nominated. And it's a silent story called Tap, 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 which is like taps, but it's also the typewriter, the sounds of the typewriter. And it's a beautiful story that Jorge drew. And yeah, that guy is another one. Talk about he should draw a Wildcat story. I could see him doing something really cool.
No, that'd be cool. I always give it up to Larry O'Neal for letting me know that Denny was bored near the end and just kind of sitting at home. And he's like, you did this really great interview with my dad. years ago. He's got more stories, and it was when he released that
That book.
the fictionalized autobiography that he did.
Yeah.
You know,
No, that was I have that book. I haven't read it yet, but I will.
Oh, we had wonderful conversations, and it meant a lot, man. And again, I'm such a fan of Denny's that I'm really glad I got that special time with him, a couple hours where we really got to talk. It's great.
I mean, maybe you should make a book someday about it or something. I don't know. All these great interviews you get, it would be really cool, you know. Someday.
We'll talk. Don't worry. Back to and listen. I know it's been over an hour. I don't want to keep you, but AI.
Yes.
I'll tell you something that I found. First of all, I'm out of radio and I'd like to get back in. I won't deny that. But meanwhile, a lot of the jobs that I did, AI is taking over. Writing copy for commercials, that's going away. And then it freaked me out this weekend, Dean. I went on YouTube and I thought I was about to watch and listen to a Star Wars audio drama based on a book. And it turned out that the guy for all the parts, they were all AI voiced. So even acting in a voiceover capacity. And I do think you can still hear the robot on most AI. When I see narration, you can still tell, and certainly they'll get names wrong, and the person that generated it doesn't know how to say a complicated name. But but it is getting better, and it is scary.
Well, I mean, it's getting better. It's scary, whatever. And I think ultimately, I almost equate it to, you know, the Patton Oswalt joke about when George Lucas, he wishes if he could do anything with the time machine is go back in time and punch out George Lucas and tell him to not make the three prequels.
Yes.
And then he's going to explain it, and he's like saying, but you get to find out how Darth Vader was made. And he's like, well, oh, that's so great. I love Darth Vader. What was it like? He's like, well, he's a little boy and he's sad, and like his mom, like, and he's like, wait a second. I don't want to know this story. I don't want to see this story. And he's like, it's the equivalent of ice cream. Do you want to know how ice cream is made? Now, unless you're making ice cream, nobody cares how ice cream is. They just want the ice cream, right? Absolutely. So I think ultimately what's going to happen where AI is going to win is when people are no longer caring about discerning whether they hear a little bit of a robot voice, whether a robot wrote it or performed it or whatever, or drew it, you know. It's just that they want the thing if it's good enough, if it's entertaining, if it's funny, if it's sad, whatever, if it does its job, right? And then, you know, our corporations then going to be like, well, why would I pay John or Dean to do something I could type out? So what they'll probably be hiring are, did you see Westworld season 4?
I didn't. I jumped I felt like, all right, this isn't going anywhere.
After 3?
Yeah.
4 is really good. 3 I didn't like. 4 is really good. And it's only 8 episodes. But anyway, what's her name? The lead female actress.
Sadie Newton.
Who? Not Sandy Newton, who's
awesome. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Marilyn Manson. I forget her name right now, but
I know you're talking about.
Danny Roth or somebody will let us know.
She's got 3 names. Yes,
she got 3 names.
Evan Rachel Wood.
Yes, Evan Rachel Wood. She is, spoiler, she's a storyteller. She's writing a lot. You know, that's what they're going to be hiring, are people who are maybe are writers, or artists, and but like that, you hire them to like make multitudes of stuff, right?
Yes.
And I think, and then it's really up to the person to decide, is it okay to work with these tools that are taking away a lot of jobs, but at least I got my job, and this can become a cutthroat kind of thing,
I agree.
We don't know. And all I can say is that is more of a reason for me to draw with blue pencil, black ink, crappy paper, scan it in. And yes, I'm digitally coloring and lettering, although I could letter and I could probably do a wash if I wanted a gray tone or something. But the majority of the work is, mind to hand to something with texture on it, right? And again, does anybody care? I don't think so. Well, but that's what I'm offering,
I hear
artisanal
you.
comics.
Jen says Google has a new text-to-speech function. Sounds pretty good. Yes, agree. Bad for voice actors and voiceover. Yeah, man. I mean, again, the doors are closing, and that's why I'm glad I make Word Balloon. And right. When it comes to AI and writing, Azzarello and I were on a panel together at C2E2 last year. I was moderating, and he's like, "Oh, we're screwed." And I'm like, "Yeah, but yes, AI can generate a typical Superman story, but like, Brian did that story for Tomorrow, where Superman has a crisis of faith and is confessing literally to a priest about his personal feelings." I'm like, I don't think AI can do that.
No, but what they could do, I think now today is what I understand, is if Brian said, "Here's my pitch. Now go make a 4-issue miniseries out of it or something." And then they could go in, get the basis, and they can go tweak it. Now, he wouldn't be necessarily going through the struggle of coming up with the next scene and how does this work with my idea, and walking in the woods or washing his hands under hot water to figure out, while he thinks, or calling up a friend and having a crisis and then turning that crisis into art or something, whereas but we have there's so many stories online. You can pull from anywhere and get a version of it, and if it sells, who cares if Brian Azzarello wrote it? It's sold, and that's for corporations to decide. It matters to us who are diehard Brian Azzarello fans, right? But also, what's going to start to happen is certain people are just going to be like, "Yeah, I think I'll probably use that. It'll help me, figure something out." Maybe
Well, again, that's a tool versus really whole cloth coming up with story.
And I'm not that kind of writer, and I'm not even that kind of artist. So, and I don't have the kind of monthly deadlines that I think a lot of people who do need to use it, or it's made available to them, and then they can finesse it. So I think it's an art of finessing, maybe. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll absolutely see. Yeah, I don't know. All right. Listen, you mentioned a couple TV things at the beginning of the show. Right now, I'm obsessed by, and I'm slow walking it so I can enjoy it. Monsieur Spade, the Clive Owen, Sam Spade thing. That's on. It's on BritBox, and it's on.
I don't have BritBox.
It's on AMC. It was on regular AMC.
Okay.
On cable, and it's on AMC Plus.
Right.
But it's amazing. Yeah, it's really, really good.
Did you see? It's Clive Owen. You said. Did you see that 2-season show he did with Soderbergh?
No.
About the early days of medical surgery.
Oh yeah. Oh no. The Nick.
Nick.
That was. Oh yeah. I forgot about that show. I thought it was something newer. Sure. That was very.
good. Yeah. That was really good. And I know he's in some movie now about the end of the world and in the Arctic or something. I haven't seen it, but.
Dean, I'll confess, I didn't watch the Oscars last night.
Really?
I was a SAG member.
Okay.
I got to be honest. And I heard it was good. I heard the broadcast was good because those COVID years really wore me down in terms of this is not entertaining. And also a lot of great indie movies, but a lot of them that honestly, I don't hate them or anything like that. And I would never, say don't make movies like that, but I was indifferent to a lot of the product.
So you're talking about Oppenheimer? Did you see Oppenheimer?
Oh no, I liked Oppenheimer, and
did you see Killers of the Flower Moon?
Yes, and that was great. And I haven't seen Napoleon. Yet.
I haven't seen Napoleon. I haven't seen Poor Things, which I know I'll probably love because I like that. I like all the people involved.
Haven't seen Holdovers yet. The Giamatti movie. I haven't seen that.
Oh, I need to see that, and I need to see the Murder. Anatomy of a Murder, which kind of looks like a Brubaker kind of movie, Ed Brubaker type story, which, by the way, Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, they keep killing it, man.
I know.
Pretty damn awesome.
I'm happy as hell for them. No, they've got it down to a system. They really do. And I always love talking to Ed about his latest graphic novels. Those Reckless books were great.
Yep.
And Pulp was fantastic. Or Pulp, right? The Western?
Pulp, and there was the newest one, which is takes place basically in a few blocks where the body was buried or something, or where the body was, something like that.
Yeah, the one that came out.
The one that I thought was a little bit of a hiccup because I just didn't care was the kind of it was not a horror, but it was almost like what's the Kubrick film? Eyes Wide Shut, kind of.
Yeah, I liked that one. Sherman. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was interesting.
It was good.
I thought
the other. Yeah, but I like it, whatever. I'm being nitpicky now, right?
Oh,
But
no.
I don't read as many comics as I'd like to. I in the last 5 years I've been picking up Eric Larson's Savage Dragon. It's and I was talking to a couple people in my studio today about this. Eric Larson's kind of doing stylistically something that with the lettering and the bombacity, something that looks like a comic from the 1960s, right?
Sure.
When I think of 1960s comics, I think of the 1980s and maybe the late 70s, because that's when I was introduced. That's when I would go back and read old comics. It was probably more in the 80s, right? I was picking up comics in the 70s that came out, but when I finally went back to the comic shop, I was looking at these comics from the 60s and the 80s. So whenever I look at Savage Dragon or Steve Ditko or Kirby from the 60s, I'm thinking of the 1980s, right? And it's true with certain movies where like the era is wrong, but I have a nostalgia for it for a different when I was introduced to it. But what's weird is whenever I listen to jazz or crooners from the 1940s, I feel like I'm in the 1940s because we don't really have music like that anymore, right?
No.
And it's so smoky and evocative of a certain era in time, that it's weird how culture like has a timestamp on it, but it's when you arrive at it or when that you re-stamp the time on it, because of how we grow up. It's so strange to me. Time is a flat circle.
I'm with you, man. Now, I know your circle of friends, so you'll be able to tell me if this is really her or not. But Lily Sobieski.
No, I mean, that would be amazing if that was really her.
Yeah, I don't. I listen, and you'll forgive me truly if it is you, Lily, because I always enjoyed your acting. But the person on YouTube, and forgive me, claiming to be Lily, saying I was.
Who would go through the hassle of faking the name to just write that? So
it's probably true.
Really
I really don't mean to disrespect you, Lily, if you're watching, and if you are, thank you for watching Word Balloon. That's always a shock. Every now and then, oh God, I can't think of his name. The kid who played Scott Porter, who played the quarterback on that fantastic NBC show, Friday Night Lights.
Oh, Friday Night, my mother's favorite TV show, and I've never seen it.
All right. Well, he did. He's done some animation. He's a big nerd. He played Cyclops on those fantastic X-Men and Wolverine and Blade cartoons from like 2010 that were made in Japan. Right. He did the American voices. He did Cyclops. And it's like a screenwriter, mutual friend of ours, is like, oh, he really likes Word Balloon. He wants to come on. And I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. And he came on and he was great, man. And he's like, oh, man, I can tell you how much I like your show. And I'm like, dude, if I looked like you, I would not be wasting my time listening to you. I'd be having much more fun and enjoying my good looks as I put them out in the world, because he's
it all matters. It all matters, and the fact that you give good conversation is truly what matters. I think.
Thank you. Well, you're half of today's conversation. So, Lily, we apologize, or I apologize if it is you and I don't realize it, because that's fantastic, and we miss you in the movies. Whatever.
Is she still making stuff? I wonder. So.
I don't think so. And again, maybe he wanted to be a mom. Who knows?
Right.
There's a lot of young, or
producer. Maybe she's producing stuff. We could look her up, at some point. But yeah. All right. I guess I'll get back to it. But I really love having a conversation with you. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to cover, like state of the industry type stuff. I don't have none of us have the answer for AI. We can just react accordingly. And I'm not really trying to bash it. I'm just trying to understand it, and I get upset because it has affected and has taken work away from me. And
regarding state of the industry, I will make a counter argument, because I know people wring their hands and are worried. But I would point out, first of all, obviously, DC being owned by Warner's, that's kind of tough, because obviously they don't know who's running the ship this week. To go from Warner's to AT&T to now Discovery, it's different. It's different people on top, and they're likely dictating what they put out, and that's why we've got a dozen Batman books from DC right now. And Marvel, I'm glad that Feige's kind of involved more. But regardless, I think when you get past the big two, God, there are so many other publishers out there. Vault and Mad Cave. I'm excited to talk to Alex Segura and damn it, I'm a Chicago guy. They're both co-writing Dick Tracy coming up.
Oh, right. Not Sean Martin.
Mike Morisi.
Oh, Mike Morisi. Sorry. Sean Martinborough did a really great cover for the first issue.
Well, and I just talked to Sean last year, and for the first time. But no, it's like I really think that while the big two are dealing with their own individual issues corporately, I think there's a lot of new voices out there, and I think that's great. And I think the product is there. I mean, that's the thing, man. Good Lord, we have an entire horror comics section in the better comic book places, when all we had back in the day was Man Thing and Swamp Thing.
Oh, that's right.
So I think things are going. I think things are good, frankly.
I mean, they are. I just don't like at least what I've experienced is that for me to pitch. Like I'm not, again, I don't have a style that's like, popular, if anything, I'll be like the ninth guy they call after Mike Allred turns down a gig, maybe, in terms of that retro kind of thing I'm kind of known for doing, which I enjoy and I love it. I don't have any problem with that. It's just, it's not in vogue or anything. I mean, it never really was, but I might be the guy to come in to draw a flashback like I did in the Fantastic Four years ago,
Yes. Well, maybe, and again, this is, I think, something that's been happening for the last 20 years, where it's a writer-led thing. I mean, I do think the artists are getting more due than they were at the beginning of the 2000s, but maybe in terms of to initiate a project, you need a Godfather writer to.
I also think it's harder to do franchise comics because of the movies and television shows. So I'm sure the editorials like thinking more like, well, when someone walks into a comic shop, they have to understand what issue 982 is happening, or do we recall it number 1 or whatever, all that stuff. And it must be harder to come up with stories because it probably has editorial mandates, unless somebody comes in with such a wild idea that is going to hand you the keys, right? And I don't know if I'm interested at this age anymore in trying to figure that out or try to navigate that. I'd rather come in and say, hey, this is like a weird idea for Batman, and it'd just be me. Can we do a one-shot or 4 issues or a graphic novel? And that's probably the best I can get, But the other side is, even when you're working with, let's say, the publishers that are not Marvel and DC, that might have 1 license or 2 licensed comics, but then they're also leaning more into the YA or to the independent or the non-superhero, the other genres. From my experience and my understanding of what other people get, is that the advances are not so great. So it's like it's harder to even make the work, without having to get another job to make the work. Yeah. So there's a bunch of like factors involved. A lot of it's finances and that risk that publishers take. And if I'm, had I sold COVID Cop to a publisher, trust me, I would be making a lot less money, if almost no money, on that book, depending. Also, it could have been a publisher that blew it up, somehow made 1 million copies, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm rolling in it, or Image Style or whatever, But I don't know. But I my guess is I probably took the safer risk, or well, it's a scary risk because you may find out that nobody wants this stuff, and so that's what you try to do. You try to figure that out, and there's a balancing act, with a lot of different risk factors on both ends for publishers and creators. And now I guess I'm a small press publisher all of a sudden. I don't know. So,
well, I know Art Baltazar is doing the same thing you are, and alongside of his book deals that he gets from various publishers, he is putting out his own creator-owned individual comics.
And you mentioned like us having more horror comics than ever before than when we were younger, and we have more like sections in the comic shops and the shelves that explore other genres and more niche stuff. And I feel like that's one thing that also recommends Kickstarter is the fact that you can do niche stuff and a lot more sexier stuff, and I'll say pornographic stuff.
No, you're right, or at least R-rated. I mean, you could go full X, but if you want to do an R-rated, hey, Jimmy, that's what Jimmy's doing, and I love it. And Dustin Gray, and Amanda. I think that's great that they're doing that because it's funny. I understand the want of the youth market, and I think that's great. And I do think the youth market is being catered to in very positive ways. But yeah, all right. Here's an old one that a couple of years ago, I think Fantagraphics put out some of the Wally Wood stuff from the 70s and 80s, and oh God, what's it called? He has there was a very R-rated. There was a Western, and then there was a men's adventure comic. Canon. Good Lord, I love that. Now
Sally Forth. Sally Forth, I think, was another one, maybe.
Oh, I thought Sally Forth was a traditional comic strip.
Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe
I know.
She kind of like Barbarella or something to me, but whatever.
Okay. But yeah, you're right about Barbarella and things like that. But yeah, Canon's amazing, and also now I'll be honest, a little racial in its presentation because of the era that it was made. But that's the thing, man. No, I think back to the Warren comics of our youth.
Yeah,
and it's there's got to be room for those kind of adult comics.
And think about they just brought back Conan the Barbarian, right? And Matt Murray, who was the editor on that before he left, and got Jim Zub and that artist who's incredible, who's very close to drawing like John Buscema, but in his own way. Okay, now they just launched Savage Sword of Conan, which is kind of bringing back that black and white, magazine.
Yes.
Not dirty, but definitely gritty and with boobs and stuff. And I actually did a Conan story about a year and a half ago that hasn't made it yet. That's going to be in that magazine. Mike Caballero turned the colors he did into gray tones, and that should be lettered and be in issue 5 or 6 or something. I'm not sure yet. But and by the way, I don't draw anything like those guys, as you know. So it'll be more of a Dean Haspiel Conan. But the story. But I do love almost a return to that look and that era and that space, that warm
absolutely
space. And I think that will start to come back, to be honest. And Jimmy and Amanda are going in the right direction because we have so much stuff for young adults, which is great, and kids, which is great. Let's get back to giving it more to the adults, that are not just, Marvel and DC Comics for 40-year-olds, or 50-year-olds. I don't know. We're adult fare,
Well, I mean, that's the thing. We grew up on the stuff when it was aimed at us as 10-year-olds, but then thankfully from the 80s to modern day, they recognize this adult audience, and it's like, well, wait a minute, we can cater to both.
Well, and look at what Eric Larson does. It looks like a 60s comic, and in my mind, it's 1980s, but there's some really vivid sexuality going on in his comics, and I'm like, he found a sweet spot in the middle. That's only Eric Larson. That's only he's doing that, and it's inspiring me somewhat to do my own thing, and we're just carving our own little lanes,
Sure.
and that's what's exciting about comics too, is like that auteur authenticity.
I agree, buddy. I agree. Dino, well done. Always a great conversation, and I know you come to play every time. We will remind everybody here. I think I'm back on the front page of it. So just 16 days as we're recording this, and Dean's met his goal, but we can always sell a few more books for Dean Haspiel. So the Red Hook, absolutely, the Red Hook X, a great combination of comic book action, but also some introspective thoughts as well from Dean Haspiel. So make sure you check it out. And as always, buddy, thank you for coming on and talking.
And thanks for giving me your Monday night, John. And I hope that the time change didn't mess you up like it did a lot of people.
I'm a wreck. Seriously, Dean, I am a bum. I am waking up at noon. That's how bad, because I'm not falling asleep till 4 a.m.
I know.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's all that Me TV, man. It's all that great Me TV.
Well, and I know you're not a fan, but thank God Cannon, Barnaby Jones, and Mannix are on at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Good Martin production. That's why, like you said, the fact that Lucy and the Andy Griffith Show will not be seen tonight. That's half my passion, is finding these old Bob Hope specials, and they always start with, Chico and the Men will not be presented tonight. And I'm like, that is my youth. That's my youth. I want to see stuff like that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thanks for helping me promote my Kickstarter. and I hope people will check it out. And I love your show, and I love you, and we'll talk again, my friend.
Well, I love you too, and I always appreciate seeing you. I hope to see you at a show at some point this year. Don't forget, Dean's coming to Ithacon in about 7 weeks, end of April. So that should be a lot of fun at Ithaca College. But I will be back on Wednesday night with Art and Franco and the usual cast of idiots, and we'll be having our free for all show. So I hope you'll join us then. Until then, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.